Hello NFL fans, welcome back to Touchdown Kingdom, your go-to channel for the latest NFL news and content. If you enjoy our videos, make sure to show your support by liking, commenting with your predictions, and subscribing, as we'll consistently bring you more exciting content like this. Today we kick off the third installment of our series, where we analyze and predict the upcoming 2023 NFL season for each division. The AFC South takes the spotlight today, and this is going to be a fun division to watch with a lot of new faces, especially at the quarterback position. 3 out of the 4 teams potentially have a new starting quarterback at some point this season, and we will hear all about how they compare to each other all season long. Get ready for some intense debates from these fan bases because they are all young QBs looking to make a positive impact on their respective teams. In this video, we'll provide a brief overview of each team's offseason moves and then reveal our predicted records. Remember, the NFL is known for its unpredictability, so there's room for surprises. Let's dive into the AFC South and see how each team stacks up. The first team we'll start with is the Houston Texans. The Texans made some big moves this offseason, including selecting CJ Stroud with the number 2 pick in the draft, and then trading the house for the 3rd overall pick, where they selected Will Anderson Jr. They hired DeMeco Ryans as a head coach, who was the 49ers defensive coordinator, and likely pushed for getting a top-tier edge rusher like he had in Nick Bosa to help run his defensive scheme. They also hired a new offensive coordinator from San Francisco, so it is safe to say the schemes ran by the Texans will not mirror what we have seen in years past. Their biggest additions this offseason were Dalton Schultz for a cheap free agent deal and Shaq Mason from the Buccaneers. They also signed Jimmy Ward from the Niners, who was familiar with DeMeco's system already. Another addition to their defense was Shaquille Griffin, who was a speedy cornerback to play alongside Derek Stingley Jr. While they are projected by many to once again be a bottom 5 team, they traded their first rounder next year for Will Anderson, so the expectation is that Will Anderson is incredible and helps lead their defense out of a top 10 pick next year to make the trade worth it. This division is one of the weaker ones in the NFL, but they are all extremely young and trying to prove themselves. So by the looks of it, the Texans front office is looking to compete for the division, and depending on how CJ Stroud plays, some skill position players will have to break out, such as Nico Collins, Robert Woods, or John Mechie. The Texans aren't supposed to be a groundbreaking team this year by any means, but if the new coaching is impressive, they could certainly stay in many of their games and have a competitive season. The next team to talk about is the reigning division champions in the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars finally hit on their draft pick at quarterback, and Trevor Lawrence is looking to lead this team to the promised land. The Jaguars did not make many moves in free agency because they did the majority of their work last offseason and even in the middle of last season. A key trade that will impact how the Jaguars perform this season is the return of Calvin Ridley. Ridley is 29 years old, but still playing on his rookie contract, and before his extended injury/suspension/mental health break, he was a 1,400-yard receiver and one of the best route runners in the NFL. On offense, Trevor Lawrence is surrounded with weapons in Travis Etienne, Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, and now Calvin Ridley. If their O-line can improve, they could be one of the most dynamic offenses in the NFL. On defense, the Jaguars are looking for last year's number 1 overall pick, Trayvon Walker, to break out. Walker was drafted number 1 overall because of his freak athletic talent combined with the potential to be a great pass rusher. In his first year, Walker showed flashes of what could come, but had a disappointing season for a number 1 pick. The Jags will be looking for a breakout and hope that Walker could lead this young defense. They also have some solid players in the secondary in Darius Williams and Tyson Campbell, who are quietly one of the best cornerback duos in the league. They also have some good off-ball linebackers in Alukin and Devin Lloyd. Overall, this team is the favorite to repeat for the division title, and will be looking to make it further into the playoffs than they did last year after beating the Chargers in a crazy comeback victory to make it to the divisional round before facing Patrick Mahomes. The Jaguars are a well-balanced team looking to make a statement in 2023. The Tennessee Titans are the next team we'll go over, and it looks like they're in a transition phase. Tannehill has been their quarterback since 2019, but has not been a great quarterback since 2020. Mike Vrabel has been a great head coach and led a solid football team for the last couple of seasons, even being the #1 seed in the AFC in 2021. But they have not made it out of the AFC despite Derrick Henry's fantastic running ability and a great defense. They made it apparent that Tannehill may be on the way out by trading up in the second round to draft Will Levis, who was expected by most to go within the top 10 picks. More evidence that they're looking to change their identity is by releasing their longtime offensive lineman in left tackle Taylor Lewan and center Ben Jones, who have been with them since 2014 and 2016 respectively. The Titans began last season with a great record of 7-3, however, they lost the last 7 games of the season, leaving them with a 7-10 record and landing them the 11th overall pick, which they used to select Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern to help bolster the offensive line. Last season, their defense was fantastic against the run, with a great front 7, including star defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons, whom they extended to a huge contract this offseason, Te'ar Tart, Harold Landry, and they signed Azeez Al-Shaair to make up for losing David Long. However, their defense was well below average against the pass, and their best player in Kevin Byard is almost 30 years old. While they signed Sean Murphy-Bunting, and some of their DBs will be returning to full health, this secondary could still use improvement with either new talent or their young players like Christian Fulton, Caleb Farley, and Roger McCreary taking a leap into becoming great corners. On the offensive side of the ball, outside of Henry, they made a big move. Their wide receiver group may have been the worst in the NFL, until just recently when they signed DeAndre Hopkins. We made a prediction video about the landing spot for Hopkins, and we were wrong. The Titans were not seen as big contenders for Hopkins until very recently, and they signed him to a 2-year, $26 million deal with an additional $3 million per year in incentives. If they decide to roll with Levis at some point this season, this will be a massive help, as we have seen in the past how solid #1 receivers impact a young quarterback's play. Outside of Hopkins, first-round pick Treylon Burks showed some promise last season when he wasn't injured, but their other surprising player last season was fellow rookie tight end Okonkwo, who began to see more playing time around week 6 and ended with over 400 yards. This team showed signs of being great at the beginning of last season, and towards the end of last season showed why they just weren't that good. In 2023, it will be interesting to see how the offense performs under their newly promoted offensive coordinator in Tim Kelly, and how he navigates in the run-heavy system. It'll also be interesting to see if they ever turn the reins over to Levis, and if they do, how will he perform? The Indianapolis Colts are the last team to go over in this division, and they may be the team that will look the most different going into next year. If you love a creative run game, I would recommend tuning into each and every Colts game, as they drafted Anthony Richardson, #4 overall, and hired Shane Steichen, the former offensive coordinator of the Eagles, who led their fantastic rushing attack last season. Anthony Richardson is the most athletic quarterback to ever enter the NFL, scoring a 10 on the relative athletic score, just beating out Cam Newton, and he has a rocket arm, but needs to work on his accuracy. Their offensive line had a down year, but I believe they can bounce back after an offseason of work, and they still have one of the top running backs in the league in Jonathan Taylor to help lead the rushing attack. A read option and RPO system with JT and Richardson will be deadly for years to come. Outside of the draft, the Colts did not add much on offense, but they did draft Josh Downs in the 3rd round, who we are very high on, being a productive slot receiver, and he seems to already have a good connection with AR-15, so that could be a great duo with Pittman lined up on the outside. Their defense may suffer a little more than last year because they traded Stephon Gilmore to the Cowboys and let Bobby Okereke sign with the Giants. However, they still have Shaq Leonard, one of the best linebackers in the NFL, and drafted a sleeper at the cornerback position in Julius Brents. While their defense will be solid next season, their record is going to mostly depend on how Richardson plays and how Steichen is able to run this offense. If they're able to lean into the run game as well as we think they can, the offense is going to be must-watch TV. And now, Finally, it's time for the record predictions. In last place, we have the Houston Texans finishing with a record of 5-12. In third place, we have the Titans finishing with a record of 7-10 once again. In second place, we have the Colts finishing with a record of 8-9 in the year with a lot of ups and downs based on the play of AR-15. And in first place, we have the Jaguars finishing with a record of 12-5. This division is certainly young, so don't let any of their records discourage you if you're a fan. The AFC is loaded with talented teams, but every year we see young teams break out and become contenders. This is just the third installment of this series, and we will have more coming weekly, so make sure to check the channel for more videos just like this. If you enjoyed, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment any disagreements you may have or any of our predictions that you agreed with. Thank you, and we'll see you next time at the Touchdown Kingdom.